Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this regularly scheduled meeting of the Waterloo City Council on Monday, December the 9th. Have a good crowd in the chambers tonight, and welcome to all of you that may be watching us on our public access television also. Madam Clerk, would you start us by reading the roll, please?
Yes, Ms. Cole.
Here.
Mr. Getty.
Here.
Mr. Jones.
Here.
Mr. Greenwood.
Here.
Mr. Schmidt.
Here.
Mr. Welper.
Here.
Mr. Hart.
Here.
Very good. Thank you, Madam Clerk. If you would all join me, please, in standing for just a moment of prayer or silent reflection, and if you have a cap on it, if you'd please remove it, that would be great. Thank you. Thank you very much. Our pledge tonight is going to be led by Ms. Cheryl McGovern, our library director. Cheryl, where are you? Oh, there you are.
Please join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. You may be seated.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Hart?
make a motion to approve an amended agenda, and that amendment is to remove item number 3 from the agenda. Also, with the approval of the amended agenda, I move that we approve the minutes of December 2nd's regular session.
I might just correct you a little bit, Councilman Hart. It's item number 3 on the consent agenda, not item 3 on the regular agenda.
So it's
It's
one-
item number 1A3.
1B3.
1B3.
Okay,
And
I
you
just got it.
wouldn't see that, right.
All right, so noted.
And was there a second?
Yep. Second.
Council, do you have any questions regarding the agenda or the minutes? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I would like to recognize tonight Rebecca Johnson. I don't think Rebecca is here, but Rebecca works in our Human Rights Department and has been there for some time with us. And Rebecca is the December Team Member of the Month for the City of Waterloo. So Rebecca, I hope you're watching, and just congratulations. It's a very well-deserved recognition, and we're glad you're with us, and we hope you're here for a long time to come. Thank you very much.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr.
I'm sorry, did you also want to recognize Ms. Stevens?
I can. Ms. Stevens is not here, but Terry Pearson Stevens, I don't think she is. Terry, did you come? I don't think you did. Has been appointed to the position of, or one of the commissioners as in our Historic Preservation Commission. So Terry, thank you for stepping up and volunteering your time to this really important committee. So thank you, Councilman Schmidt, for reminding me. Mr. Hart?
I'd like to make a motion to receive, place on file, and approve the consent agenda, items 1A through B4. Also, with the approval of the consent agenda, I move that we pay our bills, which will be read by our finance chair.
The bills this week are $1,466,123.81, 1,466,123.81.
Second.
Very good. Council, it's a roll. Are there any questions on the consent agenda? It's a roll call vote, please, Madam Clerk.
Ms. Cole.
Yes.
Mr. Getty.
Yes.
Mr. Jones.
Yes.
Mr. Greenwood.
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt.
Yes.
Mr. Welper.
Yes.
Mr. Hart.
Yes.
Thank you very much. We have a couple of bid openings and hearings. Number 2, please.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Schmidt.
Item number 2, I'd like to make a motion to receive and file proof of publication and notice of public hearing, and that's for the purchase of 6 2014 police patrol vehicles.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries, and the hearing is now open. Madam Clerk, were there any written objections on file to item number 2?
There were none.
Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak either for or against us buying some police cars? A second time?
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to close the hearing.
Second.
Council, do you have any comments?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
are we giving any preference to the local bidder in this particular item? We've discussed this before.
Mark, please.
Mark Rice, Public Works Director. We do based on city policy, so we'll have to see how the bids come in, and then we'll look at whether or not there's local preference.
Thank you. Further questions? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to adopt a resolution confirming approval of specifications, bid document, et cetera.
Second?
Madam Clerk, please.
Mr. Getty?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Greenwood?
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Mr. Welper?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Ms. Cole?
Yes.
The motion carries.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to adopt a resolution authorizing to proceed.
Second?
Madam Clerk?
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Greenwood?
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Mr. Welper?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Ms. Cole?
Yes.
Mr. Getty?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion and receive and file and instruct the city clerk to open and read bids and refer to Mark Rice, Public Works Director, for review.
Second?
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Madam Clerk, if you would please, ladies and gentlemen, we have two bids tonight, and the total estimate is $155,000 for those 6 cars.
The first bid is from Bill Caldwell of Hudson, Iowa. And the total bid amount for 6 vehicles is $157,377, 157,377.00. The next bid is from Stivers Ford of Waukee, Iowa. And that total bid amount is $156,486, 156,486.00.
Madam Clerk, Mark, please. Item number 3, please.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Greenwood.
I make that motion to receive, file, proof of publication, notice of public hearing. That's for bid opening for the sale and conveyance of city-owned property located at 506 Reed with a minimum bid of $5,000 and a development agreement.
Second?
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries and the hearing is now open. Madam Clerk, were there any written objections on file to this item?
There were none.
Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak either for or against selling a piece of city property? A second time?
I'll make a motion to close the hearing.
Second.
Council, do you have comments? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries.
Motion to receive, file, instruct city clerk to open, read the bids, refer the community planning and development director for his review.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I'm sorry, that's a roll call vote. Madam Clerk, please.
That's not a
It's not a roll
Sorry.
call vote.
That's just
All
a
right.
voice vote.
I thought it was, and my notes say differently. Did we get a vote then on the voice vote?
That was the 506 Reed, you're correct. Looks like I have one bid
One bid.
from Kim and Otto Macklin? Macklin? The offer on the property is $10,100, 10,100.00.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Item number 4, please, Council.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Welper.
number 4 is a motion to receive and file proof of publication of a notice of a public hearing, and that's for the request for a proposal for demolition and site clearance services, no related asbestos-containing material, for 217 and 219 Jefferson Street and 300 West 3rd Street.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The motion carries and the hearing is now open. Madam Clerk, are there any written objections on file to item number 4?
There were none.
Anyone in the audience who would like to speak either for or against item number 4, demolition of a couple of properties? A second time.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to close the hearing.
Second.
Council, do you have comments? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to adopt a resolution confirming approval of plans, specifications, form of contract, et cetera.
Second.
Madam Clerk, it's a roll call vote.
Mr. Greenwood?
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Mr. Welper?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Ms. Cole?
Yes.
Mr. Getty?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to adopt a resolution ordering construction.
Second.
Madam Clerk, please.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Mr. Welper?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Ms. Cole?
Yes.
Mr. Getty?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Greenwood?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to receive and file, instruct city clerk to open and read bids, and refer to the Community Planning and Development Director for review.
Second.
Very good. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we have 4 bids tonight with a bid estimate of $38,000 for demolition of these 2 properties.
First bid is from Benton Sand and Gravel, Inc. of Cedar Falls, Iowa. The bid bond is for 5%. And the total bid is for $57,650, 57,650.00. The next bid is from Peterson Contractors, Inc. of Rhinebeck, Iowa. The bid bond is for 5%. And the total bid is for $59,800, 59,800.00. The next bid is from Lehman Trucking and Excavating, Inc. of Waterloo, Iowa. The bid bond is for 5%. And the total bid is for $60,840, 60,840.00. And the final bid is from Kelly Demolition and Excavating LLC of Mount Vernon, Iowa. The bid bond is for 5%, and the total bid is for $103,840, 103,840.00.
Madam Clerk, roll. Item number 6, please, council. I'm sorry, number 5, please.
Mr. Mayor,
Ms. Cole.
I move we receive and file proof of publication of notice of public hearing on the development agreement with Robert Castro for the sale and conveyance of city-owned property for $12,250 for the redevelopment of 1640 Cherry Hills Drive.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries and the hearing is now open. Madam Clerk, are there any written objections on file to item number 5?
There were none.
Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak either for or against the development agreement with Mr. Castro? A second time?
Mr. Mayor, I move we close the hearing.
Second.
Council, do you have any comments? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries.
Mr. Mayor, I move we adopt a resolution authorizing said sale and conveyance and authorize city attorney to prepare and deliver deed accordingly.
Second.
Madam Clerk, it's a roll call vote, please.
Mr. Welper?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Ms. Cole?
Yes.
Mr. Getty?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Greenwood?
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
The motion carries.
I move we adopt a resolution approving said development agreement and authorize mayor and city clerk to execute said document.
Second.
Madam Clerk?
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Ms. Cole?
Yes.
Mr. Getty?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Greenwood?
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Mr. Welper?
Yes.
Very good, the motion carries.
Mayor?
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Getty, just a minute, please, if I could. Items number 6 and 7 are both kind of joined at the hip. They're not hearings, but they're having to do with, I think the reason why many of you are here tonight, which is our property maintenance code and the rental ordinance that is being proposed. I'm going to ask them to be read together. and we'll deal with both of them together as far as voting on them and having comments, both of them together. And I've asked Mr. Hart, Mr. Getty, if you don't mind, if he would read those together. Mr. Hart, please.
Mr. Mayor, on 6, I move to receive, file, consider, and pass for the first time an ordinance amending paragraph A of Section 2 of Article B, International Property Maintenance Code of Chapter 1, Building Code of Title 9, Building Regulations, for an ordinance change, International Property Maintenance Code. In 7, I move to receive, file, consider, and pass for the first time an ordinance repealing Chapter 7, Housing of Title 9, Building Regulations, and enacting in lieu thereof a new Chapter 7, Rental Housing of Title 9, Building Regulations, for an ordinance amending the Code of Ordinances of the City of Waterloo by repealing Chapter 7, Housing of Title 9, Building Regulations of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Waterloo, and enacting in lieu thereof a new Chapter 7, Rental Housing of Title 9, Building Regulations of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Waterloo.
Second.
Very good. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. And ladies,
Sorry, that's a roll call.
it is a roll call vote. And the motion has been made and seconded. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to take an opportunity for you to have comments on this. It's not a hearing, but I know that many of you are here to speak to this. So before we actually take a vote on this, I would open the microphone for those of you that want to make comments. I anticipate there might be a few, and as most of you know that are regular visitors, we try to limit our comments to 3 minutes. So I have a timer that I'm going to set up tonight to kind of remind you when your 3 minutes are up.
Since they've already made the motion and second, they need to vote before you open it up for comments.
Oh, I can't do that. I'm going to have to vote before comments. So we'll vote on this part of it before comments, and then I'll open the floor. So I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, I was wrong on that. Madam Clerk, it's a roll call vote for the first motion.
Ms. Cole?
Yes.
Mr. Getty?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Greenwood?
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Mr. Welper?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Very good. That motion carries. Now, I'm sorry. The microphone is open. What I would like you to do, if you have comments, just step to the microphone. Please state your name and address, and please limit your comments to 3 minutes, and there will be a buzzer that'll go off that'll remind you your 3 minutes are up if you start to run over.
Good evening. My name is Mark Pregler, 5312 Hammond Avenue. That is the procedure, right? I'm with the Blackhawk Landlords Association, and as all of the city council members know, we sent you and several other members an email. We're not necessarily opposed to the direction this is going. We understand that a lot of it is inevitable and necessary for the community and the city and the engineering office, all that fun stuff. But we do have several concerns in the checklist that we sent you that I'm sure others are going to reiterate, so I'm not going to bore you with the repetition of going over them. And listening early to the workshop, we would ask you to hold off for that one more week if that's all we're given. A lot of it isn't that it's 11th hour, 59th minute talking about over the last 15 years, so much as we finally got a copy of the proposed ordinance about a month ago, 6 weeks ago. So actually going over it in detail has not been perfect. We've also consulted with our lobbyist at the state level for advice and consent, and we've also been working with the Board of Realtors very recently. It's only just started because we have so many overlapping issues that we see eye to eye on. We both have the same issues and concerns with the city. And being as some of these folks are going to list their own, I'm going to give my personal one. The Iowa Real Estate Commission is the only one who can license someone to manage your property, and it must be the owner of the property, a full-time employee of that owner, or a real estate broker, in which case agents do and pay the owner a commission. Having said that, one of my little pet peeves, or not pet peeves, but suggestions would be that we have so many real estate agents in this area. I think there's like 460 that are already licensed by the state, that maybe in lieu of charging them a fee to get licensed a second time, for their consideration of buying their license, paying for their insurance, and paying for their continuing education classes every year, that they submit their application with a copy of their active real estate agent's license and get special consideration on either pricing or for free because they're already paying for it. There are many, many other details, and the biggest ones are similar to what we went through with the nuisance ordinance. Lack of due process, holding the landlord responsible for the actions of a tenant is illegal. We at the Blackhawk Landlords have a legal fund, and we are talking about using that if this is forced upon us to hold us liable for the actions of another. It's not right, it's against due process. My 3 minutes are up, and thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mark, very much.
Hello, I'm Sue Shawls from 2214 Regal Avenue. I'm also an officer of the Landlords of Blackhawk, and as Mark stated, many of our concerns, I think our main concern is just that, we have been working with the group, but we haven't actually seen any of the suggestions that we put forth be incorporated into the ordinance. So meeting is one thing, but working with is an entirely different thing. And our main concerns are, we just think it's a little premature. We're just not ready for it. The city has not yet been able to issue inspection certificates for the people currently holding inspection certificates. We would need to have a streamlined process of being able to verify our zoning ordinances, and we would need to have some kind of more clarification in the language to hold the tenants accountable for things like city ordinance violations, so that those would then be attached to the person who actually had the behavior that was being ticketed instead of to the property owner, so that then we could then use them as a violation of their lease agreement. Right now, it doesn't quite work that way, and we can't go to court and evict somebody for the trash in their lawn, for instance, if we're the ones being ticketed for the trash in the lawn, okay? So little things like that, notification on when criminal behavior is happening at the property on the first time, so that we can do the process that we're required to do through landlord-tenant law of being able to provide them with the notifications. We have to do a first notification, and then we have to have a waiting period, and then they have to have a second violation before we can move to eviction. So by waiting until third crime has been committed, or nuisance activity at the particular rental property, we would then only be at the beginning of our process. So we're just looking for kind of shoring up a little bit of the language to place some of the citations for the behavior that's trying to be corrected directly on the tenant, for instance. So, as well as occupancy violations. It would be nice if we could also attach those kind of violations directly to the tenant, so that we could then use them in court if we get to the point where we need to evict those tenants from the property. So those are my main concerns. I think we can all work together on a program, an online registration. I just think it's really not ready. I think we need to get some of the more pragmatic approaches in place, so that when it comes time to register all, 8,000 of the units, it's not just a bunch of papers that are going to end up in the same box with the papers of our current safety inspections. I think we need to go ahead and start developing the system, putting the fields together, populating the fields with the information off the tax rolls. Much of the information being collected is already available. And then by doing that, by sending it out to all the rental units, then you would actually capture that 20% of the quote-unquote bad rental units, as opposed to the voluntary registration.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Sue. Good suggestions.
I'm Ann Grove from 3738 West 9th Street here in Waterloo.
Oh, sorry, my fault.
Boy,
My fault.
I do a
My
reset.
fault. My fault.
You don't like people on West 9th Street, apparently.
I am a renter. I also have an opportunity to be in a number of the homes that are rental homes in the area, because I work with the Burmese refugees in town. You say under the city goals that you want to facilitate and promote the development of housing options to meet the needs of current and future Waterloo citizens. You want to enhance and protect a diverse, family-oriented community where neighborhoods are safe and well-maintained. You want to enhance the quality of place opportunities. I take you at your word that that's what you mean. But what I have seen here is an appalling amount of housing that is allowed to become slum-like. I realize that there are some very good landlords, but you have a quality problem here. You have some landlords who clearly are not in it to be responsible, caring members of the community, to maintain their property well, to work with their tenants to do things properly, and to enhance the neighborhood quality. I do not accept that premise that once you own property, you have a right to make a profit from it every day. If you are in a free market economy, as we are here, that means that you have some years when you take losses and some years where you get ahead. And that means you take care of your property and you invest in it. And I think we need a change to the housing code. We certainly need a change to the enforcement of it. And I hope that you will pass these ordinances as soon as possible and then start enforcing.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay.
All right.
It appears that that's the comments from the audience. The council, do we have comments from council at this point, from anyone? Mr. Schmidt?
If I could ask maybe, just to kind of clarify things, could we have Craig maybe give us a high-level overview of what we hope to accomplish with these two ordinance changes? So we all kind of understand what we're trying to, where we're trying to get to.
Craig Clark, building official. I guess the overview, my number one priority has always been to increase rental property, whether it be, an exterior look, an interior look, or just the overall rental stock that we have here in Waterloo, by different ways of the code and ordinances. The other whole issue of this is to more or less track and verify what are rental ordinances and who is renting them and how they're being rented and who's in charge of those and being able to contact those people and all those sorts of information, I guess.
Thank you.
Anybody else, questions for Craig?
Craig.
Craig, please.
The question about the systems in place, versus stacking up in a box over the fire station. Are there systems in place here? I know we've bought different software. Are them things up and running now?
Yes, the software we will be using is the software we have purchased that we use for community development in the city of Waterloo. The one piece we will not be using at this time is the online portion of that. But when you bring your piece of paper, it'll be put into the system. Permit would be able to be generated. It's in the system, all that information goes in there. And then from there, I'm hoping within the next year, we will be able to have the online portion of that up and running, so you'd be able to register these online, pay for them online, all that type of stuff.
Fire inspections, are they tracked in that system there?
Fire inspections are, building permits, fire inspections, they're all in that system currently.
Craig, before you leave, I have a question, please. If this should pass, when does it start? When does it go into effect? When do penalties start? What's the timeline for implementation?
March 1st would be when the applications are due in the city clerk's office. The effective date runs from June 30th to June 30th, or July 1st, I guess. So.
I'm sorry, Sue.
I think a previous ordinance did, the one I sent out a week ago or whatever, was updated from March 1st.
You're going to be able to inspect all the units?
So if they can't hear your question, so I'll allow just a couple of questions, and they can't hear them if you don't step to the microphone.
Another one of the pragmatic approach questions that we have is that if you pass the ordinance now, in 1 year from now, all the units in Waterloo need to have an inspection certificate in order to be able to be lawfully registered. So you're going to be able to inspect all the units in 1 year?
What the ordinance says in it is, if the first time registering, you do not need that information, and then after that, you're more or less, when you come in and hand in your stuff, you are able to get that license. You're able, and we will inspect them on a 3-year basis.
Right. But to renew each year, it says that you have to have all the pieces.
Once you have that certificate, but not at first, no. We're saying when you have that in place.
Yes. So I register by March 1 of this year, and by March 1 of next year, you're going to have issued me a certificate of inspection on all my properties.
No.
So how would I re-register next year?
You'll be able to re-register just like you are this time. When you come in and get that first registration, you'll be able to register, and until you get inspected on the 3-year basis, then that's when you'll get your inspection. I mean, if you were inspected 3 years ago, or it would be 5 years ago, sorry, 5 years ago, you should have got that certificate. I know you haven't been getting them, but we actually passed it, you paid it, and, I mean, technically you have that certification.
That's, I think, the point.
Okay, thank you, Sue. Any further questions of Craig?
Mr. Mayor?
Notification of the landlord when there's been a violation of if there's been a criminal activity. Are they to be notified?
Well, and I
There
think
is?
I think a lot of people are getting a couple ordinances confused, dealing with the police nuisance ordinance. There is nothing for us in this ordinance to notify. I know Sue standing up here and talked about notification of that. That isn't in this ordinance. Garbage isn't in this ordinance. Those are things code enforcement and the police department currently do that have nothing to do with this ordinance. The crime-free addendum is, maybe I should explain the crime-free addendum a little bit. The crime-free addendum is an addendum that is a contract, I look at it between a contract between the tenant and the owner, or the tenant and the owner. That must be typically in a lease. It is a piece of paper that both parties sign, and that is used for the landlord. All we are saying is the landlord has to have that piece of paper signed by both parties, and if we ask for it, they have to be able to provide it. That's,
Please, if you have a question, please come to the microphone.
okay, that's the first thing. And if we want that, yes, we will notify you that we want a copy of your crime-free addendum for 715 Mulberry. But it has nothing to do with arrest happening at that place or anything like that.
Mark?
So it's toilet paper, not piece of paper. Because if, Mr. Troke and I met in the hall just earlier today, that I found out from the officers that were there when I was called in at 1:30 in the morning, and from the tenants next door, that the police have been there 4 or 5 times in the last several months. That was the first I've heard of it, because we're not notified. We can't fix it if we don't know it's broken. That's one of the sticking points we've been talking about, not just the nuisance ordinance, but your crime-free addendum is a pact between me and my tenant. But my tenant sure ain't going to tell me that they've had the police call them and they've got a legal issue. And that's one of the cooperation things we really, really want from the city. Somebody's got to tell us, and if you've got this new system up and running after a cycle of a year or a year and a half, my email address as the property manager should be in there, and if there's a citation or an issue or something at that residence, there's no expense in typing up an email as compared to stuffing an envelope, putting on a stamp, and mailing it. That's one of the cooperation things we're really looking for as a landlords association, is the communication. We can't fix it if we don't know there's a problem to begin with.
Do you have a response to that part, Craig? To that?
A little bit, yes. I mean, we're still not talking about this ordinance, we're talking about police department being at that property. I have nothing to do with the police department, besides we're in the same building here.
Okay, so
That's what I'm trying to say. This ordinance has to deal with the property crime-free agreement is what we're talking about here. So we require them to have that in place. We require if it is not used after multiple times, then we can hold that against their landlord license.
Multiple times of what?
But it is not, the police show up, we're going to give you a notice that would have to come from the police department. I mean, we can work towards that, but I don't know how we accomplish that in our city. It'd be something for us to do.
Well, in the current ordinance, it says that the first violation of the crime-free addendum is going to be fined at $100, but it doesn't actually clarify who's going to be fined. The second one's $250, the third one's $500. So two-part question, when you said if they don't act on it after the third time of that, what does that mean? I mean, I think you mean the third criminal offense. And then clarify for me exactly in the ordinance who is going to be fined for the violation of the crime-free addendum.
The owner.
Exactly. But an owner cannot violate a provision of the lease.
The violation
If you read
being,
the crime-free addendum, it says if the tenant commits a crime, the owner has to take, and in your ordinance, it says that you're going to fine the landlord or the owner for a violation of the crime-free addendum. But the owner isn't bound by the crime-free addendum, that's on the tenant.
the owner is bound to have that agreement. So if you don't have that agreement, that's where you're going to get the $100 penalty.
Right,
So-
so it's a piece of paper that you haven't, everyone has that in their lease already, okay?
Should be pretty simple then.
So explain it to me again, I don't get it.
So there's two parts. The first part being the crime-free addendum, which is required to either have in a lease or we have a sheet of paper that can be filled out, signed by both parties. If you already have that in your lease, great. It's going to be a simple process for you.
And how would that be violated? And who would violate that?
So if, let's say, we go out to one of your properties and there was a crime committed there, we could ask you to provide that lease agreement. So it's a conversation between me and the owner. And if that is not, if you do not have that agreement signed, then that would be a violation of that agreement. Now, if we're saying you have multiples of those, then that could be counted towards
Of what?
not having that lease agreement,
Okay.
the crime-free agreement, or not exercising the right to use that in court. Then you would be able to, that would be an infraction of your lease.
Could I ask a question, Sue, and correct, with the crime ordinance that Director Trelka has instituted and actually is working quite well in several instances, do we need this part in this ordinance, or is it redundance? Thank you, couldn't think of the word.
It'd be nice if we had.
I guess I don't know if there's redundancy as much as it's a little bit different in the case of rental property versus, any property, I
Okay.
guess. It would be the only thing difference.
It just appears as though that this particular part, Jim, do you have a comment, if you'd like to weigh in?
Jim Walsh, City Attorney. The purpose of the crime-free addendum is to clarify the relationship between the landlord and the tenant vis-à-vis crime on the premises. That's the only purpose of it. The purpose of Craig's, the part in his ordinance that we're talking about tonight, is to make sure it's there. You got to have one. It's got to exist between the tenant and the landlord because it's a tool that both the landlord and the tenant will refer to when there's been crime on the property. That's the purpose of it. There's a provision in this ordinance that will fine the landlord if they don't have that. You got to have it. If you have it, you're in the clear as far as his provision is concerned. It doesn't solve the problem on the police side. That's a different issue. What the police are going to do is eventually hold the landlord responsible for not using that addendum to clean up the property vis-à-vis the tenant, to make sure that the tenant is not doing anything that the landlord could prevent. Landlord may not be able to stop it. It may be a horrible criminal who just won't go away. If the landlord's made reasonable steps within the law to try and do that, the landlord then won't be found liable. But that's a matter for the courts and a matter for the police department and the landlord to work out over time. That isn't dealt with in this ordinance. It just requires that you have the addendum as part of your lease.
Thank you.
I think
Okay.
what we're confused about is that there's actually a first, second, and third violation structure. So you're not saying that,
First, second, third violation for many municipal violations, the fines are progressive. First time they come out to your house, you don't have one, you get the first fine. Next time you have a different tenant, they come out, you get a second fine. Third time they come out, you get a third fine. It goes up each time, so you'll stop doing it.
so it's not tied to the criminal behavior of the
Not
tenant?
the one he's talking about. It's tied to having the provision in your lease.
Thank you. Okay, further questions? Steve?
Mr. Mayor, I don't have a question, but it's unfortunate, I think, that everybody in the room wasn't here for the ordinance meeting, because I think there were a lot of good questions, and I think there was a lot of good conversation. And, you know, my sense from that meeting is that, first, I'd like to say that there's, you know, this is not as contentious an issue, apparently, as I think some of us thought it was going to be, and it seems like we're fairly close. And for Ms. Grove's concern, you know, I think we're fairly close to getting this done. But I kind of go back to what we talked about at the ordinance committee meeting, among other things, is I think if we could get a meeting arranged between Craig Clark and a couple other folks from the city and representatives from the Landlords Association and possibly the Realtors group and whoever else, you know, we'd be open to suggestions. Whoever else might have some skin in the game to get this resolved and get it as close to perfect as we can, figuring we're probably never going to get it perfect, but it seems like a lot of this is somewhat minor stuff that could bubble up, and if we could get that out of the way ahead of time, I think that would be, you know, a win-win for everybody.
One more time, Craig. How many meetings have you had with the Landlords Association about this particular, and come to the microphone, please, and wasn't the meeting at the Elks that was fairly well attended specifically about this? Yeah.
Yes, this has been a very long process. I mean, I guess I don't know how many times I've been at some landlords associations, some, you know, neighborhood association meetings, and talking to different people. There's always, you know, I mean, we could stand and talk about this forever, and there'll still be people questioning certain things. It kind of got brought forth back just because of the time of year and that type of stuff. My time of year is not as busy this time of year, so I have more time to work on these type of things, so.
Okay, thanks.
Mr. Mayor, and, you know, just to follow up on that, I was at that meeting at the Elks, as I know several council members were, and that was, I don't know if there were 150 people there. And, I mean, that's not the kind of session I'm talking about. I'm talking about you. I'm talking about maybe the president and a legal person from the Landlords Association. If the Realtors Association wants to be involved, I mean, I don't know who else should be at the table. And I love the neighborhood association meetings, but that's not the venue I'm talking about either. And I think we could get together, get into the fine line of this stuff and get this resolved in a relatively short manner. I mean, I don't see any reason, and I'm certainly open to any suggestions from the audience, but it would seem like we'd be able to get that done.
Thank you, Mr. Schmidt. Mr. Hart?
So, taking a look at the next part of this, so if the motion is already passed, if we do not suspend the rules tonight, or if we do, is there still an opportunity to take into account, like Ms. Shaw's just mentioned about the portion of the fines, and I see like where it's a little confusing where it says abatement or remediation of the violation. So maybe that part of the language should maybe come out, just a small piece of it, because when you think of abatement, I naturally think of the nuisance. So there's a couple areas, as Councilman Schmidt had mentioned, where some communication would help. So if this passed tonight, can there still be further? It has to go back out again and then come back.
We'll do first reading again if we start changing the ordinance.
Okay.
But council has the authority to do that.
Right.
Mr. Hart, I mean, you can do,
Redo it again.
you guys are the authority in this, so you can do what you want.
So if there's some language that needs to be
If there's-
tweaked a
yeah,
little
If there's
bit.
significant language change to the ordinance that's presented tonight, after it's passed the first reading, then it'll have to be read again in total.
Okay, okay.
Mr. Mayor.
Ms. Cole?
Would it make sense to table this ordinance until January 15th? We're going to set a date, we're going to set meetings, and we'll do it with neutral parties and not 150 people in the room, and then bring it back and vote on it and vote it up or down.
That's your call to make.
I mean-
And we don't have to table it, just don't pass
Yeah.
suspend the rules.
Okay.
Yeah.
But we need to there needs to be a timeline, or we'll still be doing this next June.
Okay, and in response to your comment, though, it's been passed as is, so if there's major changes, we're going to have to bring it back for a
We'll bring it
first
back
read.
for first, second, and third readings.
So, and all you have to do with that is just not suspend the rules, and we can do that.
Or they can fail the suspending the rules.
What's the correct way to do this, Mr. Walsh?
The problem is, once you do pass it one time, then you're supposed to sequentially do it until it's passed or fails. But a motion to table can be made at any time. You don't have to wait till the next meeting. You can make the motion to table now.
Correct, but can we change the language in the ordinance from what it
What you'll
was
have to
written?
do, and I'm sure the council would do that, is just read them over, start over again,
Okay,
read it all 3 times, suspend the rules, and pass the ordinance.
okay. So you can make the motion to table if you, I'd rather do that than,
Okay, I move that we table this and have a completed ordinance in front of this council by, who's got a calendar?
I don't.
by the second meeting, third meeting in January, to say.
Okay, no later than the 3rd meeting in January.
Second?
Okay, there is a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, let's read a roll on that, please. To table till the third meeting in January.
It's the 20th.
Ms.
What is it?
Cole?
The 20th, which is, so that'll be the 21st, because the 20th is MLK Day.
So the 21st.
And if I could just ask, then as part of that motion, or is this behind the scenes or whatever, that we set some expectations and some specifications on what's going to be done between now and then as far as,
It's not part of
Is
the
this-
motion, Mr. Schmidt. I mean, I think that our marching orders are very clear, and I'm sure
I
that.
don't know if that ball's in Craig's court, I don't know, I'm just
It is.
asking.
It is.
Okay,
In Craig's
okay,
court.
all right, thank you.
Ms. Cole?
Yes.
Mr. Getty?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Greenwood?
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Mr. Welper?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Very good. The motion passes to table till this January 21st. Greg, I think you have your marching orders, and why don't you maybe get with Mark and Sue and pick a couple more, and let's keep the numbers small, but work some stuff out. Very good. Good
Mayor.
conversation. Thank you all for coming. Hopefully, we'll get somewhere with this, and you're certainly welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting if you'd like, or if you, whatever. Okay, Mr. Hart on number 8, please.
To move to receive, file, consider, and pass for the first time an ordinance establishing grades in the city of Waterloo in conjunction with the FY 2014 Sidewalk Repair Assessment Program, Zone 3, contract number 852, for the FY 2014 Sidewalk Repair Assessment Program, Zone 3, contract number 852.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
It's a roll call, sorry.
I'm sorry, it's a roll call vote. Madam Clerk, please.
Mr. Getty?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Greenwood?
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Mr. Welper?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Motion
Yes.
Motion carries, and motion carries. I was confused on this. Council, do you have, let's go ahead. Make a motion on the next.
Motion to suspend the rules is where we're at now.
Motion to suspend the rules, I'm sorry.
I lost my place, totally.
Motion to
We're on
suspend
the
the rules.
second motion. That's an
I need a
ordinance.
second.
Yeah.
Okay, second. Couldn't hear you.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Wait a minute, before we do that, Ms. Clerk, please. Council, do you have any questions regarding this item? I'm sorry, I didn't give you the opportunity to speak on the first motion. Are there any questions or comments from council? Madam Clerk, it's a roll call vote.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Greenwood?
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Mr. Welper?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Ms. Cole?
Yes.
Mr. Getty?
Yes.
Very good, that motion carries.
Mr. Mayor, I move to consider and pass for the second and third time and adopt the ordinance.
Second.
Madam Clerk, please.
Mr. Greenwood?
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Mr. Welper?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Ms. Cole?
Yes.
Mr. Getty?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Very good, the motion carries. Thank you, council. Maybe we can I can get back on track here. We're into the resolutions. Let's do the first three, please, 9, 10, and 11.
Mayor,
Ms. Cole.
move we adopt a resolution approving ACO bulk handling system usage agreement number 11713 with ACO Unlimited Corporation of Johnston, Iowa for Sportsplex swimming pool chemicals and equipment, and authorize the mayor to execute agreement. 10 is a resolution approving completion of project, recommendation of acceptance of work, and release of retainage in the amount of $60,824.71 for work performed by Peterson Contractors, Inc. of Rhinebeck, at a total cost of $1,216,494.29 in conjunction with the Anaerobic Lagoon Pumping Station Contract Number 807. And 11 is a resolution approving stormwater pollution prevention plan for South Hills Golf Course Drainage Improvement Project and authorize mayor to execute owner's certification.
Second.
Council, do you have any comments regarding 9, 10, or 11? Roll call votes, Madam Clerk.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Mr. Welper?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Ms. Cole?
Yes.
Mr. Getty?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Greenwood?
Yes.
Very good, the motion's carried. Next three, please.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Schmidt.
Item number 12 is adopting a resolution approving amendment to development agreement and amendment to minimum assessment agreement with Cedar Valley Warehouse LLC for the building at 2843 Geraldine Road, and authorize the mayor and city clerk to sign and fully execute all necessary documents. Item 13 is adopting a resolution approving collateral assignment of development agreement for 2843 Geraldine Road, allowing the tax rebates for the project to go from previous owner to new owner, and authorize the mayor and city clerk to sign and fully execute all necessary documents. And item 14 is adopting a resolution authorizing the assignment of rebates document to Kinsler Equities LLC from the prior development agreement with Cedar Valley Warehouse LLC, and authorize mayor and city clerk to execute said document.
Second.
Council, do you have any questions or comments? Madam Clerk, please.
Mr. Welper?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Ms. Cole?
Yes.
Mr. Getty?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Greenwood?
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Very good, the motion's carried. The next three, 15, 16, 17, please.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Greenwood.
15 is a resolution approving the third amendment to the original development agreement with Cardinal Construction, Inc. from August 2008, allowing separation of the two projects originally required, and authorizing mayor and city clerk to sign and fully execute all necessary documents. 16 is resolution approving agreement with Howard R. Green, Inc. of Cedar Rapids, Iowa, in the amount of $6,500 for the preparation of two applications to the United States Environmental Protection Agency, the EPA, including a community-wide brownfields hazardous substance assessment grant totaling $200,000 and a petroleum products brownfields program grant totaling $200,000. Also authorize the mayor and the city clerk to sign the fully execute all necessary documents. 17 is a resolution approving recommendation of award of contract to J&K Contracting of LLC of Ames, Iowa, in the amount of $869,679 for the No Name Creek Interceptor Sewer Contract Number 849. Authorize the mayor and city clerk to execute that document.
Second.
Council, do you have any questions regarding 15, 16, or 17? Mr. Schmidt?
Mr. Mayor, I just had a quick question on item number 16 for Mr. Anderson, and I understand that's just a application for the, a preparation for the application, but would there be city match on that? Do you happen to know?
Bill Anderson, Community Planning Development Director. There is no city match with these grants.
There is no. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Question? Mr. Getty?
item 15, what two projects are we separating?
No?
Bill Anderson, Community Planning Development Director. This is two of the buildings on the center part of Country Club Business Center. There's one office building that was built there next to the vet center. There was a space for another office. We originally did the development agreement for two new smaller office buildings there. They built the one. They'd like to separate that one off from the development agreement from the other site that has not yet been built, so they can sell it to another party. So we're basically setting the parameters of the minimum assessment agreement and all that for that one site to be sold separately while we continue to work for development of the area.
Didn't we vote on that there was going to be two buildings to start with?
Correct. We put them in one development agreement, so this will allow them to sell that one off separate with the other one not being built yet
And what's going to go in there then?
into that
Not an
building.
office building on this other piece of property?
It would still be another office. Building would be built on the bare land, yes.
The terms are the same, right? There's no change.
Correct.
Really, material change to the
Correct. No change in the
financials.
rebate schedule or anything
Yeah.
like that.
Okay.
Okay. Further questions? Roll call vote, Madam Clerk, please.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Ms. Cole?
Yes.
Mr. Getty?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Greenwood?
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Mr. Welper?
Yes.
Very good, the motion carries. Council, let's do 18 by itself, please. Somebody would take that.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Getty?
Make a motion we adopt a resolution approving a 2.9 salary increase for non-bargaining employees effective July 1, 2014, plus a 1.9 salary increase that was withheld from the fiscal year 2012. I make a motion that we approve that.
Second.
Very good. There's a motion and second on item 18. Council, do you have comments regarding this?
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Jones?
just part of the wording here, the increase that was withheld, was it really withheld?
We struggled with that word just a little bit, Mr. Jones. We came up with that word, as you remember, or I think you remember, that non-bargaining employees in the past have gotten the same salary increases as bargaining unit employees. In 2012, that was withheld from the non-bargaining unit employees. So we came up with the term withheld. I think it's the correct word. They didn't get it.
Mr.
Ms.
Mayor,
Cole?
I have a question. When this council voted to do that, and I was one of those people who did, we ended up with 2 more bargaining units as a result of that vote. Is that correct?
We have 2 more bargaining units. I think this was probably a
right,
a driving factor, yes.
And what are those 2 bargaining units?
I don't know. Ms. Shears?
They consist of our several professional positions, the engineers, the planners, IT. We have police lieutenants.
Fire.
Fire was a different one. They actually kind of had 3. Fire joined the fire union, so it didn't create a new one, but code enforcement, so several of our professional levels that
And
had
what
bargaining.
union did they join?
AFSCME.
AFSCME. Okay, and then what was the other group?
They both joined AFSCME.
They both joined AFSCME.
Separate groups, but
But
both were
there
AFSCME.
was some fire personnel
Yes,
that
the
joined the
fire
fire
went
union.
into the fire union as well.
That was previously non-bargaining that became
Remember
bargaining.
that.
Further questions? Mr. Schmidt?
Mr. Mayor, I don't have a question, but, I think the entire council has huge respect for our city employees. But, 2 wrongs don't make a right. And I know the reason I voted against this back then, and I'm not sure about Carolyn or who else voted with me on that, but to vote against that.
Voted for it, you mean? Voted for withholding it.
For withholding,
Yeah.
correct, yeah. The dilemma we've got, and I understand the situation we're putting some of our managers, some of our department heads in. I had some conversations this week, and I'm assuming some of the other council members did too. And I have empathy for that, but the problem, in my mind, we've got is where we've got great city staff, we've got great managers, we want to be fair with everybody, but we've also got great taxpayers. And I don't want to, beat a dead horse here, because I've been saying this for 6 years, but I continue to look at what the private sector has been getting for compensation, where they've been getting no salary increases, they've been getting salary cuts. They've been getting increases, substantial increases in their health insurance coverage. They've been getting substantial decreases in their retirement packages. And it just doesn't seem like that ever registers in the public sector. And I can't say that completely, because we have seen that. It's happened at the state level. It's happened at Hawkeye. It's happened, I believe, at the county. I think maybe Cedar Falls has done some things. But what I hear from the people I talk to at church or at the post office or at lunch or whatever is that we just don't seem to see what's going on with our taxpayers. Our retired folks have not had much in the way of increases in the last 3 or 4 years. And I understand we can't control that, but what we can control is what goes on here. And the 2 wrongs making a right goes back to what Carolyn was saying, that had we not done the salary increases we did with the bargaining units 3 years prior, we wouldn't have been in that situation. And I understand the way it was positioned with the council was, if we don't agree to what we agreed to, then we're going to go to arbitration. Well, I'm ready to go to arbitration. I was ready to go to arbitration then. I'm ready to go to arbitration now. Tell me we're going to lose, but we aren't going to know till we go. And so that's how we've gotten, I think, in this position that we're in. And it's not a good position, we're not in a good bargaining position, but we're in the position we're in, and so that's why I'll oppose this motion.
Mayor Clark.
Yes, ma'am.
Could I just note for the record that city employees did see a very significant increase in their health care costs in this last bargaining
Would you
meeting?
define that for me?
Yes, their deductibles doubled, their out-of-pocket maxes doubled, their
Would that be
co-pays
from-
almost doubled.
Could you tell me what that's from and to, please?
It was at $250 and $500. It will be at $500 and $1,000 for deductible, and $1,000 and $2,000 for out-of-pocket max. So it is doubled. Co-pays have went up from, I believe it was 10, and it will end up being 20, I think, at the end of the contract for each doctor's visit, as well as premiums now are based on based on our claims, because we're self-insured, so they will see a percentage of that increase if those claims go up, so they're taking some of that responsibility as to if our claims continue to go up, if we have unhealthy employees, the employees are taking responsibility for that premium, so they have seen a significant increase in their health care costs over the course of this contract.
Very good. Further comments, questions? Mr. Greenwood.
This, roughly, we have 520 employees in the city.
Give or
and,
take a few.
There's probably 400 plus are represented by some type of collective bargaining unit. And so the folks we're talking about here today are roughly around 100 plus or minus, which consists of our department heads, our management of our public safety, our fire and police, our management staff at Leisure Services, and
Center for the Arts.
Centers for the Arts. So,
Many of our secretarial pool also, Bob.
so it bothers me that if they were in a collective bargaining unit, they would have got the 2.9% increase, and they would not have lost the 1.9 in 2012. And, I can't ask our department heads, the people that manage the collective bargaining people, to not be reimbursed for their talents and then their work and their service here. And I think that would be very tough on morale for the management staff. And I have found in my business life is that you reward your people that you trust to run your enterprise. The less turnover you have, the better off you are. If you got a revolving door of management staff here, especially in the departments we're talking about, the whole city would suffer because of that. I look at the skill set that the waste management or the engineering or the fire safety, any department here in the city, it takes a while to get that type of experience that helps run a $100 million company, as the city of Waterloo is. And I can't, so I'll support it. I'll support our department heads.
Thanks, Bob.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Hart?
Just had a couple questions. One, I think some of the conversations that we've held about this is the inequities in some parts of our pay structure. And so when last budget cycle, I think there was one or two of us that expressed some concerns about trying to see how we can help our managers or just straighten out the entire pay structure. Does this have an impact on some of those inequities in our managerial positions? Second question I have is, coming up to this budget time, do we have an idea of what our economic forecast looks like for this budget session? And then third, how much, if we do the 1.9 in addition to 2.9, how much does that actually cost in real dollars?
Michelle, can you answer
Some of those, or do you want me to go?
whoever's capable?
As far as the economic forecast, finance department is working on that right now. The entire city staff has just been given the budget documents, and we're working on that, this is a piece of that. We need to know what salaries are gonna be, obviously, to budget for that year. As far as the cost of the 1.9, finance estimated that it would be about 136,000, is what the salary increase would be at the time. And as far as will that affect some of the inequity or compression issues, I guess is what I would call those issues, it will have an effect on those. We still will have some work to do. I've made a pledge to council that as the HR director, we will be working on looking at the organization as a whole, specifically the non-bargaining, and then the bargaining when we get to that point in 2016 when we can do that, working on our pay structure and working on the possibility of steps rather than just having across the board increases and that sort of stuff with no accountability. So we are working on that, and we have gathered a significant amount of information towards that, and it's a long process because you have to look at job descriptions and everything else, to be able to compare it to other cities.
Susie, so the group in 2012 that didn't, that went to bargaining, was there something within their bargaining contract which helped them to recoup the 1.9 that they lost?
And then some. They were all working towards, we were able to negotiate in steps, not the final steps that I think we want to be at, and we'll definitely be working on that for the next contract. But when you negotiate, you have to look at comparabilities, and so when we looked at comparabilities and they were here, it moved them to there. So most, if not all, of the positions got the 1.9 and then some to get them closer to comparable cities, which is what we would have ended up with. We probably would have had to jump to comparability if we would have went to arbitration.
So
we didn't get them there, but we worked towards it.
So the 2.9 that we negotiated with the bargaining, plus all the other health costs and everything associated, say for instance a planner. So a planner had the 2.9, and there was some pay structure things within there or compression things, they also got additional than what we approved them to get, based upon whatever steps you're saying.
For the negotiations, all of the new bargaining units didn't just get across the board 1.9, 2.9, that sort of stuff. They actually got new salaries based on comparabilities, which is what you have to do, especially if you're going to do steps. So we did build in steps based on their longevity with the city and based on their positions, taking into account the percentages as well.
Interesting.
And the responsibility in that position.
Correct. And it was compared to all of the cities that have those positions and negotiated.
So the 100 and, how many ever positions Bob subtracted, these folks, these are just getting to 1.9. There's no steps to get them up to this. We're just...
That is what for the non-bargaining, the 1.9, I can tell you, does not get us to comparability. It is a step in the right direction. It's probably the easiest step to make in the beginning. And over the course of the next year, we need to break those down and try and build a step structure, if that's council's wish, for non-bargaining to adopt, so that we're doing things differently, because there currently is not a step system in the city for salaries.
So how long would that take to do?
It depends whether you want to spend $100,000 on a consultant or whether you want me to do it.
I can tell you, Councilman Hart, that Susie is working diligently compiling information on every individual job in the city and comparing it with other cities in the state to find out where we are and trying to build a step increase to all of those positions individually, so that your example, as a planner, we might suggest the first year they get $500 more a year. Somebody else might get 100, somebody else might get 750, but depending on the position and how compressed the wage is,
Correct.
is how we'll proceed, and she is doing that. Forrest, quickly, please. Go ahead.
I'm always.
I know you are.
Forrest Dillard, 1725 Huntington Road. This is very good conversation you're having. but you're only working for a few people. You are working for basically the people setting up there and the people managing this city. You have forgotten the taxpayers. When you want to compare to other cities, that's great. Their mayor makes, their councilmen make, their department heads make, but we are the highest taxed people almost in the state. When are you going to say, hey, let's take care of them taxpayers. Let's pull them taxes down. When you give percentage pay increases, the people getting 100,000 get a twice as big a raise as the people making 50,000. That's not the right way to do it. John Deere has a program where they base the pay raises on a scale of the last contract. So you don't, in the 3 years or 5 years of the agreement, you don't get a 3% on the 3% you got last year. It's based on your base rate. So you continue to snowball, and the people at the top keep getting richer and richer. And there are more pay inequities because of that, even in your own ranks. Thank you.
Of course, the only thing that I would disagree with you on, or not disagree with you, but it's not just the people sitting up here in the department heads. There's I don't know the number, but many of our secretaries who work for very small wages are non-union, and they're the bulk of these people that we're talking about. It's not the department heads. It's the folks that get a lot of work done around here. But anyway, just for the sake. Okay. Again, it's not a hearing. I wasn't going to allow any comments, but very quickly.
Mr. Mayor, do I get my 3 minutes?
You got 3 minutes.
Congratulations on being reelected as mayor.
Thank you.
And I want to give Steve Schmidt my condolences as not being reelected as mayor. At the Rotary Club, you said part of your job, as you see it, is to be a cheerleader for Waterloo, Iowa. But I know better-looking cheerleaders than you.
Well, after all those nice compliments, you got to throw that in.
Now, what I wanted to say...
Wait, you got to give us your name and address. I didn't
It's
answer.
Ted Lederman,
Yeah.
1758 Pinehurst Lane, Waterloo, Iowa.
Thanks.
Now, what you said at Rotary is true. You picked up that Waterloo is going to have tremendous financial problems. We're going to have 200 million...
I don't think I said that, but go ahead.
You said you were going to have 200 million in sewage
Oh, okay.
updates to meet federal requirements.
Yep.
So what we're seeing is a tsunami coming, and you said, well, we'll kind of get to that when it comes. But basically, we have to plan for a storm before it gets here. And I think that we like the public workers, but we have to realize the taxpayers are also public servants. And you're saying, Ms. Shares, that the copay has gone up. The copay at Covenant for a primary care physician for an employee is $35. The copay for a specialist is $45. The copay for emergency room is $180. The copay for urgent care is $150. About 6-8 months ago, we heard that the city employees were paying about $20 a month for their health insurance. I don't know what they're paying, but I know that the employees at Covenant are paying thousands of dollars a year of their salary for health insurance that is withdrawn from their check. I also know that employees of the city, when they leave the city, retire, get health benefits. When you leave Covenant, you can leave after 37 years, you can leave after 40 years, you can leave after 45 years. You get your health benefits stop the day you leave. So let's be fair as to evaluate service organizations, which is the city of Waterloo, and a hospital. There's no comparison in the benefits. Recently at Covenant, because they could not afford pensions, the pensions were decreased across the board. Do we decrease pensions to our workers when the city has difficulty? So I'm saying we've got to look at, number one, what is the cost? Number two, what are the future liabilities? And number three, I'd like to know how much does it cost us per employee in our tax dollars for their health insurance per year, and what are our future obligations to them, and how much do they contribute to that? Thank you.
Thanks, Doctor. Jim?
Jim Chapman, 224 Birch. I remember the 80s when I was at Deere's. I've been on management and bargaining unit. And I think Harold was there and probably Forrest when we got our wages froze for 4 years. Cost of living, everything across the board. And now my copay has gone up. I don't get any raises every year. And the last 3 out of 4 years, I never got a Social Security raise till last year. You know, so I just don't see where you justify this.
Thanks, Jim. Okay,
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Jones.
So, along the lines of what we're hearing and what Mr. Schmidt has been talking about, I mean, in reality, the increases in compensation outpace the growth in our tax base. So every year, we get farther and farther behind, and our taxes are high. And the $136,000 that Ms. Shares is talking about tonight, that's $136,000 this year and the year after, and then it grows on a percentage wide. So overall, we have an issue of compensation outpacing our tax base. This particular item helps us with our internal structure of our internal pay structure, so it will help out certain individuals, but it doesn't address the bigger problem, which we're going to have to address at some point. Every budget cycle we look at, we've been going into the reserves for the last few years. We've gone into a bunch of things that are really unsustainable, and we really have to address kind of the whole structural issue at some point.
Thanks, Mr. Jones. Anything further? Mr. Schmidt?
Just real quickly. What one of the speakers mentioned about the sewer thing, we've also seen, and I have distributed to the council and other folks, the presentation that Mr. McAllister did over at City of Cedar Falls regarding the 411 pensions. And you've spoken quite a bit about the 411 pensions and the fact that they're not currently funded, and right now it looks like that's going to fall on the city taxpayers. Who knows how that ultimately is going to play out, but that's the way it appears. We know that commercial property is continuing to go down in value, and the tax rate on commercial property is going down again based on what's going on at the legislature. So we know, it just takes me back to what one of the speakers mentioned, we know this storm is coming, but we just seem to not be willing to deal with that. And Bob, again, I understand what you're saying, and I would love to do the same thing as if we had the money to do it, but we don't, except then we just turn around and add more taxes to the same 65,000 people. If we were growing, if we were 70,000 or 75,000, we'd have a new pool of people to draw money from, but we don't. We've got the same number of people, and whether it's a property tax, a utility fee, a user fee, any other fee you want to call it, or tax, it's going to the same number of people. And to go back to what Councilman Jones said, I mean, we just can't keep doing this. The 6 years I've been on the council, I've heard other council members talk about doing cost analysis, quantitative methods to see how efficient people are, to see what we could be doing different, that kind of stuff. And we keep talking about, yeah, we're going to do that. As far as I know, we never have. And I know we've all gotten an email from some folks in the last day or two talking about looking at privatizing or outsourcing some services in the city, and you responded back that, well, we're talking to some folks about that, and the response was, well, that's great, we're talking about it, but the budget's 3 or 4 months out. We should be getting them in right now for interviews and doing more than just talking about it, or we'll be having the same conversation again next December. So I guess that's the thing I would really love to see, and I hate the fact that Bob and Harold are leaving us, but maybe with some new folks on the council and new attitudes and new way of looking at things, that maybe after the first year we should take a holiday Monday or a fifth Monday evening to sit down and look at some of these things and have that conversation and see where it takes us.
Thanks, Mr. Schmidt. Further? Madam Clerk, it's a roll call vote, please.
Ms. Cole?
Yes.
Mr. Getty?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Greenwood?
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt?
No.
Mr. Welper?
Yes.
Mr. Hurt?
No.
Very good, the motion carries. We're going to 19, 20, and 20. Let's do all the last 4, please.
Mr.
19,
Mayor?
20, 21, 20. Ms. Cole?
I move we adopt a resolution approving request by Proactive Holdings 4 LLC for the preliminary plat of Crossroads Retail Center addition, generally located near the intersection of East Ridgeway Avenue and East San Marnan Drive, for an 8-lot commercial subdivision. 20, a resolution approving request from Public Works Director to utilize municipal discount pricing through John Deere State of Iowa bid process for the purchase of one 2013 John Deere 770G motor grader in the amount of $193,257. 21 is a resolution approving a professional service agreement with AECom for the design of the FY 2014 flood control gate well repairs in the amount of $81,000 for the repair of 25 gate wells along Blackhawk Creek and the Cedar River, contract number 867, and authorize mayor to sign and execute the document. 22 is a resolution approving the assignment of lease with Operation Threshold as part of the acquisition of 300 West 3rd Street for the continued development of the Sportsplex area, and authorize mayor and city clerk to execute any necessary documents.
Second.
Council, do you have questions regarding 19, 20, 21, or 22? Madam Clerk, it's a roll call vote, please.
Mr. Getty?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Greenwood?
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Mr. Welper?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Ms. Cole?
Yes.
The motion carries. Let's do the last three, please, 23, 24, and 25. Mr. Hart?
23, I move to approve a request by Steve Wareham, interim airport director, to advertise for an airport consultant. 24, I move to concur with the determination of the city planner that the proposed change to the approved site plan for Crossroads Estate replat number 1 in an R3 RP Plan Residence District is insignificant in nature and approved as a minor site plan amendment. 25, I move to approve change order number 1 for FY12 CIP sewer lining contract number 834 in the amount of $297.60 less from the original contract cost of $177,098.60 to a final cost of $176,801.
Second.
Council, do you have comments regarding 23, 24, 25? For voice votes, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Ladies and gentlemen, that's the end of our council meeting tonight. Had good discussion on a lot of important items. If anybody has anything else they'd like to address the mayor or council with now, please do so. Just come to the microphone, give us your name and address, and please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Cheryl?
Cheryl Christensen, 1702 East Mitchell. I've submitted the 3-page copy, and I hope that all of you read it and take in consideration when you're doing this landlord licensing, because I can see where it can involve landowners at any level. And I'm not liking the international part of it, and I think each city should be determined on their own, whatever their expenses are. I don't think it should be involved in an international agreement of any kind, so.
Thank you,
And
Cheryl.
at the bottom, I have put in there that I think we should have a funeral and bury it and leave it that way, so I would appreciate it if you took that into consideration also.
Thank you, Cheryl.
John Sherman, 1715 Robin Road. I've sat here for quite a few different meetings, and I've watched a lot of the budget stuff, and I've listened to every excuse or promise or whatever we've ever done, and almost every one of them can be justified one way or another. The only thing that I can't quite understand is the debt ratio that we have. It doesn't sound like a lot, but about 22 cents out of every dollar is going for debt. It's going to go up because we keep bonding more money. We have no plan to ever pay a nickel back. I've never heard anything mentioned in any budget hearing or anything about what my grandkids are going to have to worry about, because we don't worry about what we've already spent. You know, that's money that, you know, we're over $95 million or somewhere as close. We don't even never mention that. That's never brought up at any meetings that I've ever heard. And we've got great people here. But between that and the 200 million and all the other different numbers that are fired around here, maybe we ought to start from square one and see, because we build new buildings. We've got the $26 million building down here we're going to get. What's the plan for maintenance? Do we have any kind of a budget ahead of time? The same thing with the Sullivan Brothers and all the rest. We build the buildings, but we never consider fixing anything. So with that, thank you.
Thanks, John. Anyone else?
Randy Herod, 111 Highland.
There was an article recently in the paper with one of our council people prominently displayed, Carolyn, and she asked the question I think that we should all be asking, and where is the dog ordinance? This has been going on for weeks, and I'm telling you, from my experience, this is not a difficult thing to put together. We could do it in 2 days. What is going on? I have yet to hear about any meeting open to the public to come down and participate. Not one. What's going on?
Randy, I just talked to Chris Wendland, who's doing the codification of that, to turning it into an ordinance, to use the excuse that we had lots of things going on, probably as an excuse, and not, it is legitimate, but I didn't want to do it as we got towards the end of the year. There's just too many things going on. We do want to have a meeting. It'll probably go to 3 readings, and I didn't want to get that tied up with the holidays. We will have that in front of the council, and we will have a meeting by probably the second week in January, if not the second, the third, but certainly by the end of January.
Will there be a meeting separate from city council meetings?
No, there will be a public hearing that.
So what
that
we're
day.
saying is that we as citizens are going to be able to look at it once it's all written, and we won't really have any input.
No, you will have the code to review prior to that time. Prior to the, we'll have a work session, thank you, my brain is fried tonight. We'll have a work session.
You need her.
That will allow everybody as much time as you want, within limits to speak.
You.
Yeah, within limits to speak, and we will distribute the ordinance, and we will not vote on it that night. Whether we have it the vote the next week or the week after that, we will give people an opportunity to take a look at that and digest it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. You know, we get blamed, Randy, either way. We either do things too quick or we take too long. We can never do them just right.
Motion to receive and file oral comments and adjourn.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned. Thank you, everyone.